Today's episode is brought to you by the Daily Gardener Friday newsletter. You can sign up for the newsletter over at thedailygardener.org. Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, a podcast about garden history and literature. I'm Jennifer Ebling, and today is July 12th. Today in garden history, it was on this day, July 12th in 1757, that Horace Walpole wrote a letter to his friend John Chute, Esquire, about the heat wave that was coursing through Europe. July of 1757 set many records for heat, and at the time, it was the hottest month ever recorded in Paris history and for the country of England. The English physician John Huxham noted that the heat caused many health issues for people. Horace's letter from his home at Strawberry Hill ended with these words: "I say nothing of the heat of this magnificent weather, with the glass yesterday up to 3/4 of sultry. In all English probability, this will not be a hindrance long, but I have made the tour of my own garden but once these 3 days before 8 at night, and then I thought I should have died of it. For how many years shall we have to talk of the summer of '57? And today we celebrate the birthday of Henry David Thoreau, the American naturalist, essayist, poet, and philosopher. He was born on this day, July 12th, in 1817. National Simplicity Day is observed every July 12th in Henry's honor. Henry advocated for living a life of simplicity, and he's best known for his book Walden, a reflection on simple living in natural surroundings. A leading transcendentalist, Henry's essay Civil Disobedience was an argument for disobedience to an unjust state. It was Henry David Thoreau who wrote all of these nature-inspired quotes. The bluebird carries the sky on his back. God made ferns to show what he could do with leaves. There are moments when all anxiety and toil are becalmed in the infinite leisure and repose of nature. I know because I read, your mind is not a cage. It's a garden, and it requires cultivating. Live in each season as it passes. Breathe the air, drink the drink, taste the fruit, and resign yourself to the influence of each." And finally, here's this one. "I once had a sparrow alight on my shoulder for a moment while I was hoeing in a village garden, and I felt that I was more distinguished by that circumstance than I should have been by any epaulet I could have worn." And today we celebrate the birthday of Oscar Hammerstein II, the American lyricist, librettist, theatrical producer, and director in musical theater. He was born on this day, July 12th, in 1895. Oscar Hammerstein was born into a show business family who lived in New York. His father and uncle, Willie and Arthur Hammerstein, were successful theater managers, and his grandfather, Oscar Hammerstein I, was a famous opera impresario. Oscar's career spanned almost 4 decades, during which time he won 8 Tony Awards and 2 Academy Awards for Best Original Song. And it was for Carousel that Oscar wrote his most famous lyric, "June is bustin' out all over." The last song that Rodgers and Hammerstein wrote together before Oscar's death in August of 1960 was Edelweiss, Captain Von Trapp's poignant farewell to his beloved homeland. Oscar used the flower Edelweiss to symbolize Captain Von Trapp's loyalty to Austria. And today we celebrate the birthday of Richard Buckminster Fuller, the American architect, systems theorist, author, designer, inventor, and futurist. He was born on this day, July 12th, in 1895. Richard styled his name R. Buckminster Fuller for his writing, and he wrote over 30 books and coined or popularized such terms as spaceship Earth, ephemeralization, and synergetics. In 1960, Richard also popularized the geodesic dome, and he installed one called the climatron in the Missouri Botanical Garden. Richard predicted that it would last for a while, but it would not be a permanent structure. Today, some 60 years after its debut, the climatron is still standing, and it's home to nearly 3,000 plants, covering almost 200 different plant species, including one that produces the largest tree-borne fruit in the world, the jackfruit. The climatron also hosts at least 3 varieties of coffee plants, and every January, the climatron closes for tree trimming. Trimming allows the trees to continue to actively grow, and it also lets sunlight reach ground-level plants. The word climatron is a blend of the Greek words for climate and machine, and this magnificent dome was also the world's first fully air-conditioned greenhouse. The climatron ranges from 64 degrees Fahrenheit at night to a high of 85, the perfect temperature range for keeping rainforest plants happy and healthy. Inspired by nature, Richard often wrote about the natural world. He wrote, "Nature does have manure, and she does have roots as well as blossoms. And you can't hate the manure and blame the roots for not being blossoms." He also wrote, "There is nothing in a caterpillar that tells you it's going to be a butterfly." It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, The Manual of Plant Grafting by Peter McDonald. This book came out in 2014, and the subtitle is Practical Techniques for Ornamentals, Vegetables, and Fruit. Well, this is such a handy book to keep in your garden tote or potting bench, and as Peter points out, grafting is simply the process of uniting one plant with another so that they become a single plant. And if you've been gardening for a while, it's only natural to grow more curious about grafting as you grow your garden. Peter's book is an excellent grafting resource, and he's quick to remind us that there is no single correct way to graft a plant. There are, however, different ways of successfully grafting. These are not necessarily preferred or better, just different. But Peter tells us that one of the main aims of his book is to discuss in detail the principal techniques that are being used by growers. And then Peter shares a really wonderful resource with us. And so keep this in mind if you are intent on learning how to graft, or even if you're already grafting, you may not be aware of this resource. Peter writes, "The other principal source of information has been the International Plant Propagators Society, and any professional horticulturist involved in producing plants should be a member of this society. The journal goes back over 50 years and holds a wealth of knowledge on all aspects of propagating and growing plants. But more importantly, with the motto, 'Seek and Share,' its members freely exchange knowledge, making it a very friendly and supportive society." And again, that is the International Plant Propagators Society. So check that out. Now, Peter writes, if you're new to grafting, I hope that this book will give you the confidence to have a go at it. And if you already graft, I hope you'll find new pointers to help you improve your success rate or quality of the final plant. And if you just have an interest in gardening, I hope you'll be inspired to find out more about some of the characters who have contributed to grafting over the years. Now, the chapters in Peter's book include one on the history of grafting. I found this to be quite fascinating. And here's an example of Peter's straightforward tone in the book. Peter writes, Between 3 and 5,000 years ago, a farmer took a shoot, or a scion, from a plant and attached it to another plant, or rootstock, in such a way that they formed a union and the shoot began to grow. The first graft had been successfully carried out. How many times might this have been tried before a successful union was achieved? And how often would someone persevere in trying to achieve a union if the first attempt was unsuccessful? Great questions. And this also underscores the complexity and the simplicity of grafting. It's both things at the same time. Now, other chapters in this book focus on the uses of grafting, formation of graft union, production of rootstock and scion material, and bench grafting. And the chapter on bench grafting is divided into cold and hot callus grafting, which is used depending on the time of year and whether artificial heat is applied to the graft. Peter also has a chapter on field grafting, which is the other primary method of grafting used by growers. And Peter also covers vegetable grafting, something that might appeal to you if you're interested in grafting tomatoes and other vegetable salad crops. And by the way, vegetable grafting is something that the Japanese popularized. So there's a little fun fact for you when it comes to grafting. Peter also talks about another specialty area, and that's his chapter on grafting cactus. That's something near and dear to my heart. I'm always interested in learning more about succulents. And then finally, Peter wraps things up with a forecast on the future of grafting. And at the very end of the book, Peter shares other helpful resources that includes 3 charts of woody plants, both ornamental and fruit, that can be grafted, and then other charts that suggest grafting options for various plants, as well as suitable rootstocks. So lots of technical information in this book, but it is a solid resource in the skill of grafting. This book is 232 pages on how to grow your grafting skills to improve the performance of your ornamental and productive plants. What a great skill to cultivate. You can get a copy of The Manual of Plant Grafting by Peter McDonald and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $18. Finally, we end the show today with a botanic spark that features Hugh Johnson. It was on this day, July 12th in 2012, that Hugh Johnson, the author of Trees, The Principles of Gardening, and many writings on wine, wrote in Trad's Diary, which started as an editorial column of the RHS Journal. And I love what Hugh wrote for this entry already 10 years ago, and I thought it was a great way to end today's show. Hugh wrote, "You garden with a light touch," said a knowing visitor the other day. Appreciatively, I hope. Could she have been referring to the complementary campanulas, the aleatory alliums, the volunteer violas, and random ranunculus that meet your eye wherever you turn? You leave things in, so much nicer than taking them out. I do take them out. I've been barrowing opium poppies to the compost for weeks now. The idea is to let them show a first flower or two, decide whether it's a good color or not, is fully frilly or otherwise desirable, and pull up the ones that have no special quality in hope of improving the stock. After years of doing this, I admit we aren't getting very far, but I enjoy the process. The thing to remember is what comes out easily, like the poppies, and what leaves roots in the ground. You can enjoy an allium, even into its seed head phase, and still get rid of it. Not so an invasive campanula, and violas are the devil to do away with. It's lucky I enjoy weeding so much. Well, that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening to The Daily Gardener. And just a reminder that you have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for listeners of the show. The next time you're over at Facebook, just search for Daily Gardener Community, where you'd search for a friend and then request to join. And if you'd like more of The Daily Gardener, you can subscribe to the newsletter over at thedailygardener.org. And don't forget that you can also show your support for the show by using the Buy Me a Coffee link over at the website or in today's show notes. This is Jennifer Ebling. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.